Sup, guys? 0-4 yesterday. I've had worse, but that was the worst in a long time. None of the bets were even close. Everything was just done. It was over right away. Every single thing that I had a bet on. What else can you even do about that? And then, of course, the two baseball leans that I had both got there in Philadelphia, and then the over in the Dodgers game. Oh, so that's great. Meanwhile, I'm sitting on that under, and Toronto puts up 7 runs in the first inning off of Zebby Matthews. Well, I guess whoever else came in relief of him. Just a complete disaster in all 3 college football games. I thought I had the handicap right on those with the returning chemistry, and none of those were even close. It's just crazy. The Texas A&M lean that I had, that wound up not being a winner either. So luckily I didn't add to the fire there, add to the complete disaster. This is so insane. We're moving on to today. I have one baseball play today. I mean, you can't just go crazy, man. You got to still be selective here. I'll talk about a few of these baseball games real quick, just because I do see some market signals on a couple of these games with the ticket discrepancy being opposite the cash discrepancy. One of those is in Pittsburgh and Cleveland. There's a huge discrepancy on this one, with Cleveland up from minus 142 to minus 144. 78% of the tickets are on Cleveland because obviously they're the better team with the better record, but 89% of the cash is coming in on the other side on Pittsburgh. I think a lot of it has to do with the starting pitching matchup because it's Mitch Keller for Pittsburgh, and he's one of their decent pitchers. I mean, he's not Paul Skeens, but besides Paul Skeens and then Jared Jones, I like him, and he's back, I think. But besides those guys, I think Mitch Keller is kind of the next best thing that they got there in Pittsburgh. And against Cleveland, he actually has held them to a low 188 batting average and 601 OPS and 32 at bats. So I think that's why the professionals are actually coming in on the Pittsburgh side here. And I tend to agree with it just because I think Keller is the right side of that pitching matchup, where Alex Cobb is pitching for Cleveland. It's like, is this guy ever going to be healthy? I don't know. Like, I forgot that he existed, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Alex Cobb is starting for Cleveland. Like a couple weeks ago, he makes 2 starts, and then he gets hurt again. He's on the DL or whatever. Now he's coming back again. I don't know if this guy has anything left, man. I mean, he's old at this point. There are guys his age still in baseball, but this guy, I don't even know. 4.35 ERA, 1.45 whip. I have no idea if he's going to wind up being able to do anything. And against Pittsburgh, I think he doesn't have much of a history, but I think I would much rather be on Keller. Actually, he does. 56 at bat sample size. He's a lot of 250 batting average and 708 OPS. Not terrible numbers, mediocre numbers there, but I prefer the Keller side in that one. 3.84 ERA, 1.24 whip for him. And it looks like the market is signaling on that. The market also looks like it is signaling on the Oakland side against Texas. Another game where the home team has the better record, but they're not favored by that much. Texas down from minus 135 to minus 124, almost like they're begging you to take Texas, but the line is reverse moving against them. Public, 79% of the tickets on Texas, 59% of the cash on the other side on Oakland. And I think Oakland has the more consistent and proven starter in this one, where Texas, they're going with like an opener approach here, I think, with Walter Pennington, who is a pretty young guy who I've basically never heard of before. And he's only gone 3 innings in 1 outing. And other than that, he's gone basically 1 or fewer in every other outing, except 1 other 2 1/3 outing. So I think we're going to get an opener start out of that guy. And then Mitch Spence is the guy that can go deeper into games. He's a guy who's been in the rotation most of the year for Oakland, but he has bad numbers of the 4.54 ERA, 1.34 whip, but he's at least been consistent and hasn't been that horrible of a pitcher, really. And against Texas, they only have 9 at bats off of him, and he's held them to 1 for 9, 111 average, and 222 OPS. So I do agree with the market on both of those, on the Oakland side and on the Pittsburgh side, but I don't think they're really that strong. I mean, do I really want to put my money on like Pittsburgh's offense and potentially having to deal with Pittsburgh's bullpen? Although you could go first 5 inning on that. Or do I want to put my money on Oakland with Mitch Spence, even though he should be the better option over what Texas is going with Pennington? I don't know. I do see big cash discrepancy on Tampa as well. In San Diego, Tampa. San Diego's got 91% of tickets, but 71% of the cash on the other side on Tampa. This is a game where I would prefer the under, but I think it's just gotten totally out of control. This is Dylan Cease against Ryan Pepio. Both of those starters are quite good, obviously. Dylan Cease isn't kind of running out of steam, though, which may be part of why the professional bets are coming in against San Diego in this one. He's been having a dominant season for the most part. The 3.57 ERA, 1.09 whip, but he's been racking up such a high strikeout rate, and he's walked kind of too many guys, which has led to him throwing way too many pitches, and he seems to be running out of gas this month. His ERA is up to 4.43 in August with a 23-12 strikeout walk ratio, and he's given up too many hits, more than one an inning. So that's maybe why, but I wouldn't be able to bring myself to actually bet against Cease just because he does dominate Tampa in 43 at-bats, 186 batting average, 588 OPS. So to me, this looks like it could be more of a pitching duel, although Ryan Pepio has been the better recent pitcher. In July, he had a 1.72 ERA across 3 starts. I think he was injured at some point in the end of July, and then he came back mid-August, and he picked up right where he left off, basically, and he has a 2.08 ERA in August with a 16-3 strikeout walk ratio, which is better than his 11-6 in July. He's been pitching well since he's come off injury. Faced one really good offense in Arizona, and the other 2 not so much in Oakland and Seattle, but Pepio is in better recent form out of the 2 pitchers, but his numbers against San Diego are rough. San Diego saw him back when he was a starter for the Dodgers, I presume, and San Diego in 20 at-bats has a 350 batting average off him and 985 OPS. So they do hit Pepio well, and Cease has good historical numbers against Tampa, so that is what keeps me off of that. The specific matchup against these specific hitters makes me not want to play Tampa here, but the market looks like it's really strongly signaling on Tampa with the line moving against the very public San Diego side. As far as the total there, it's dropped from 7.5 juice to the under to 6.5 juice to the over. 65% of the tickets are on the over. Public, even though they know Cease is a good pitcher, I think they just kind of see, well, it's San Diego. We're just going to come in and play it over, basically. I don't know, but 88% of the cash is on the under, though. So I agree with the under here, but if you can find it under 7, that would be the way to go in that one. But I would like it more if both pitchers were really good against these opposing hitters. And now getting to the one play that I have, it is an under, and it is going to be in Seattle, Anaheim. We're going under. This total is up from 8.5 juice to the over to 9 juice to the under. I see 53% of the tickets on the under, but 95% of the cash on the under. The best line that I found was under 9 at -112 over at FanDuel. You can get under 8.5 at plus money, but of course, I like the 9. Like, if you can get under 9 at better than -120, that's pretty good. Even at the -120, I might actually prefer it because 9 is a key number in baseball, because if it's a 4-4 tie, you need that one extra run to break the tie. So I would prefer that over the 8.5. But you can get the 8.5 at plus money, the under 8.5. But I think this is an under type of game, and both teams had kind of regular bullpen usage yesterday in a 5-4 win for Anaheim. Kind of dramatic win, actually. I think they had a walk-off win, and they scored 3 runs in the final 3 innings to win 5-4 and overcome a 4-2 deficit. But both teams didn't use that many relievers. Mariners used 3. Anaheim used 4. They did, I think it's just kind of regular bullpen usage. The teams did kind of use some of their better relievers, but I think the bullpens didn't get totally burned out. I don't think we're looking at totally overworked bullpens here. It's to the point where I think we're going to be able to take the under here and hope that the starters can get deep into this game too, which I think probably should be the case on the side of Seattle with Bryce Miller pitching, who's, in my opinion, I think he probably is their best pitcher, even though Wu does have really good numbers. Miller is the better strikeout guy. Miller he's just been very impressive, man. 3.23 ERA, 0.98 whip, 143 to 33 strikeout walk ratio, so not walking a lot of guys. Only 115 hits and 150 and 2/3 innings pitched. He is very hard to hit. He has one of the lowest, I think, hit rates in baseball, probably. Strikeout rate is lower than 9 per 9 innings, but it's still not bad, and that walk rate is low as well. 2.22 ERA in the month of August, following up a 1.8 in the month of July, where he had an 18-1 strikeout walk ratio, and in August, 34-4 strikeout walk ratios. Now, of course, we're going into September, but he's just been really, really good. Anaheim did face him back in July, so there's recent familiarity, but I mean, I don't think that that's going to matter that much when you're kind of like the ace of your team and you're just a really good, consistent pitcher like Miller is. I mean, of course, Anaheim has seen him. They're in the same division. He pitched well against him with a 7-inning shutout performance with no walks, 3 hits allowed, 5 strikeouts back on July 22nd. So they are familiar with him, but I don't know if that's going to really do much because they've had other games. I think going into that game, they were already familiar with him because he's been around for a little while now and he's in their division. But looking at Miller versus Anaheim across all of their careers, Anaheim's hitters are only 5 for 40 off him lifetime with 2 doubles, 15-1 strikeout walk ratio. So he has dominated these Anaheim hitters. They have a 125 average and 321 OPS off of him. 40 at bat sample size, not bad. So Miller has really been good against Anaheim. So that looks good. On the other side, Caden Dana is pitching for Anaheim, making his major league debut at the age of 20. Holy crap. I mean, that might make him the youngest player in Major League Baseball if that's the case. I don't know, but Anaheim, I mean, they know their season is over, so they're bringing up their top prospects, and I think he might legitimately be the top prospect in their organization. They're fast-tracking him. They're bringing him up, and they're bringing him up straight from AA, skipping AAA, and I think their AAA affiliate is in like a very hitter-friendly park, so that would probably make his minor league stats look worse. So maybe it's not good that he's skipping AAA because we would have seen like what he could have done against hitters in a more hitter-friendly environment, but I don't know, because he was dominating at the AA level, man. I mean, had a really high strikeout rate, one of the higher strikeout rates in AA, not walking a lot of guys. I think his ERA was in like the 1s or 2s, had a low whip. He was very dominant. He's a guy that's got a 5-pitch arsenal as well with fastball that's basically mid-90s that can kind of reach the upper 90s, slider that I think has a lot of movement on it, curve, and changeup, which I think both of those seem like they could be pretty good pitches as he like develops them. But he's a developing guy. I mean, he's one of the top prospects in the Angels organization. Like I said, I see it right here. Actually, he had a 2.59 ERA across AA in 135 and 2/3 innings pitched. So that's actually the stat. I thought it was in the 1s. Maybe I was looking at his whip. I said 1s or 2s. So hey, it's all right. But that's a pretty low ERA nonetheless. So he was really good, and I guess he's a highly enough considered prospect that ESPN already has his mug shot here, his like headshot here up on his page, even though he's never made a major league start before, which is almost never the case on ESPN. Looking at these guys, so Caden Dana, man, I mean, he's a guy that has good stuff. He's a top prospect, and he's coming in and making his major league debut. And you know what I always say about this: when these young guys who are highly touted prospects and they have good stuff and they've been successful at the minor league level and they're coming up, they're being brought up because they're a prospect and they are considered to be that, considered to be one of the best in the organization. That's the situation. So he's not a guy where he's just like coming up to fill in like a role because Anaheim needs guys to fill out the rotation. No, Anaheim's in a situation where the season is over and they're like, let's see what these guys can do, basically, at this point. So that's a situation where those guys come up, they're like legitimately supposed to be good pitchers, and these hitters have never faced them before, so that's an advantage to that pitcher early on, man. Like I always say, these hitters have to get used to him. They have to adjust. They have to see him a couple of times to figure him out and know what he throws, so that's the play. Under in Seattle and Anaheim, under 9 at -112 is what I got, man. And I recommend the under 9 if you have to pay a little bit extra for it, even up to 120, I think is fine, to get that keyer number of 9. That's the only play for me today. And we do have college football, of course, as I mentioned yesterday. Standalone, big college football game between ranked teams, LSU and USC. I think, are they both ranked? I think they are. I don't even know. LSU, I assume, is ranked higher than USC. I talked about this yesterday on my college football show, which was a disaster, but maybe some of the info in there is still good for today and tomorrow because I talked about both of these standalone games. LSU is down from -6.5 to -4. Not a huge difference through those numbers. Some kind of dead football numbers there in the 5 range. I would prefer 4.5 if you wanted to take USC, and that is the side I lean to. Lean to. Oh, man. So LSU, I mean, they're public, 62% of the tickets, but only 56% of the cash. They're the higher ranked team. People remember them being better than USC last year. So people are coming in, and the public's going to play the LSU side here. And they liked what they saw at LSU's offense last year. But this line, like I said, is reverse moved against LSU down to the 4. This is a neutral site game in Las Vegas, but of course it's way closer to USC. They're playing at Allegiant Stadium, I believe, the Raiders Stadium. So it's a big stadium, big primetime game for both teams here to step it up and play in the national spotlight. But USC should be able to travel, even though LSU is going to have their fans there as well. But USC, it's a much closer travel spot for them. So it's almost like a semi-home for USC, close to it, I would say, but it's somewhere between semi-home and neutral, I would say. So I think USC has a slight edge in that respect. And USC, I mean, the fact that I lean to them as the side is just more of a market read than anything else, where it just seems that LSU is maybe just laying too many points in a situation like this to kick off the season, with both teams having kind of newcomers to their offense. Although I think LSU's quarterback probably has a little bit more experience than USC's. But this is the game between the two teams that both had the highly picked quarterbacks in the NFL draft, man. So LSU had Jaden Daniels, USC had Caleb Williams. They're both gone, obviously. They're both drafted into the NFL. And both teams, as I mentioned on my show yesterday, both teams probably shouldn't skip that much of a beat on their offense, because both teams had a quarterback waiting in the wings who did play in the system already and does know the system because they've been in the organization and been on the team. So it's not like they went out and got a transfer or whatever, a guy that has to come in and learn it. Both of these starting quarterbacks in this game are guys that came in through this team and have been in the system, learning the system, so they should know it, and they've both played for the team already. So for LSU, it's going to be what's his name again? Neusmeyer? I forget his name. He played in the bowl last year for LSU. So he has some experience under his belt. And I think that he was actually in a quarterback battle to be their starter or something at the beginning of maybe last season. I forget what it was, but he's a pretty good quarterback, and he had a good bowl, if I remember correctly, and he's jumping right in. I don't think he should miss much of a beat, really, because he already knows the offense. So that's going to be the case there. And then for USC, very similar. I think their quarterback is Mitch Moss. He also played in their bowl game, although that was a bowl game where I think they weren't paying a whole lot of attention to it because they had guys like Caleb Williams and other guys who I think were leaving to join the NFL draft and whatever and didn't play in the bowl. Moss did, but he's a guy who obviously was on the team already as well, and he has played with the team. He understands the offense and knows it as well. So that's the case on both sides here. So I actually think that maybe the over would be the best play, better than the side in this game, but I don't know, because I do like the USC side as well, just based on what I see in the market. But at +4, it's a little bit worse than getting it at a better number, obviously. But I think +4, if you can get 4.5, is still not horrible. As far as the over, I mean, this line keeps going up, though. It's gone up from 62.5 to 65.5 juice to the over. When I talked about it on yesterday's show, I think it was at 64 or 64.5, which is definitely better than 65.5. It keeps going up, man. So there is something pushing this total up. And I do see 75% of tickets on the over, but 57% of the cash on the under. I'm not sure that percentage is accurate because the line keeps moving up. And is that all just because of the public influx? I mean, there is probably going to be a lot of public betting on this. I mean, this is the only football game tonight, right? This is the standalone football game. Oh, except for NC Central and Alabama State. My apologies. That's also tonight. If everybody's going to watch that FCS game, I don't even know if it's televised. But yeah, LSU, USC, it's the only football game on, essentially. So people are going to be betting it. So maybe they've had to adjust the total up because of the public influx on the total, which seems to be more than it is on the LSU side. But I think the over might be right in this one, man. Even though offenses tend to start a little bit slow, defenses tend to start more quickly than offenses do at the beginning of the season. The offense has to kind of regain that rhythm and stuff. But maybe we're being shortchanged a little bit on it just because these quarterbacks are both new, but they do both know the system already. Like I said, they've both been in the system already, and they should kind of be ready to go already, I would say. And both of these teams were complete over teams last year too. That's the other thing. Both of these teams have questionable defenses because if they're returning guys from those defenses they had last year, yeah, it's going to be questionable. Both of these teams couldn't really stop anybody, and combined, I think these teams went 22-4 to the over last year. So they were both over machines with really high scoring offenses last year, which I think should still be the case again with these quarterbacks knowing the system already. And both of these defenses were bad and may continue to not be very good. So we will see. But I'm not going to have a play on that. That's going to do it for me for today, man. My only play, once again, under in baseball. I mean, football started, but there's still opportunities to make money in baseball, and baseball's got the full slate still going on, man. So that's where we're going. The only play, under in Anaheim and Seattle, or Seattle and Anaheim, because I think it's at Anaheim. Under 9 at -112 is what I got it at. Peace out.